What's up guys, welcome to Wasted Space, and last night Keen hosted a 3-year anniversary stream for Space Engineers, and in this stream there was a bunch of kind of cool announcements about stuff coming up for Space Engineers, showed off a few bits that we're going to get soon, and answered a whole bunch of questions. And I figured there's going to be a bunch of people who haven't seen that stream, 3 hours long, might not have time to sit down and watch it all, so I'm going to try and recap for you kind of the big points of the stream, the things that are coming up soon, and try and show you some of it in the background at the same time. So the stream actually began with Space Engineers the original version, the first release of it, which was really interesting to see from a nostalgia point of view. I was actually playing back then. But also it was done because not only are they going to be releasing that version for us to access through Steam, so if you want to go back and play that old one, maybe compare it a bit, then that's going to be an option. But so we could have a direct comparison to what we saw next, which was the build from in-house. The one with some performance fixes, some lighting fixes, and all those cool new blocks they've been showing off. So we finally got to see what Space Engineers is going to look like with the new armor models for both light and heavy armor, and those cool new models for most of the blocks in the game. There were some that hadn't been done, of course, but most of the blocks we did get to see, and we got to see some cool new ones as well, like the button panel we haven't seen yet, that looks really interesting, and the blast door models look really kind of cool as well, if a bit odd. It's going to take me a little bit of getting used to, I think. But we got to have a good look at that, so I'm going to leave this footage up in the background because a lot of the stuff in this video I can't really show you anything. It was stuff they talked about rather than actually demonstrated, and hopefully you can get an idea of what Space Engineers is going to look like in the near future. Now, part of this was also talking a little bit about integrating mods into Space Engineers. Now, this is something they used to do occasionally, find good mods that were really popular in the community and then integrate them back into the base game. But they haven't done it for quite a while. So it was interesting to see them announce that we're going to get 2 mods integrated, and those are the corner lights and the corner LCDs. Now, I can't argue with their mod choices, those are really interesting ones. I might have liked to see maybe some functional ones like conveyor hinges, but hey, both really cool mods, and those are going to be coming actually into the base Space Engineers game some point soon, which is going to be cool, make some of the vanilla builds look that much better, especially those corner lights. I really love using them, make corridors just completely pop in comparison. But we don't actually know when those are coming, some point soon. Nice to see that Keen are kind of back on that mindset. Maybe it means we start to see a bit more of that. They didn't say anything about it, but I'm hopeful because I think it's a really cool way of bulking out the game with some of the stuff that we already know we love, like, say, aerodynamics. Who knows? Now, following that, there was a big section talking about performance improvements, and we actually got to see some of them firsthand. They were spawning in some huge ships with the new models and showing that actually it was not running too badly. And this was all to do with how load is handled in Space Engineers. Now, some of you guys will know Space Engineers is very, very CPU bound. Almost all of the work takes place on the CPU, it uses a bit of your video memory, but in reality your graphics card is doing very, very little work. And what they are doing and what they're gunning towards is shifting how that load is placed. So the idea is they're going to remove all of the bits that are CPU bound, the things that are actually limiting the game's performance, by shifting it onto the GPU, which would sound negative because you'd be like, oh god, I haven't got a good GPU, how on earth am I going to do that? However, they actually said that it didn't end up increasing the GPU load, it just decreased the CPU load. I don't know how that's possible, seems like magic, but those were the words that were said, so I'm relaying them back to you guys. Overall though, it was just really cool listening to the Keen guys talk about that being the focus, talking about wanting to fix the core game, get the multiplayer and get the performance of the game sorted. And one benefit of all of these performance fixes was that not only is this going to improve how the game visually runs, you'll get higher FPS, but you'll also get a higher sim speed, which of course will have knock-on effects in improving multiplayer and improving everyone's experience in general. So this is really cool. If you guys, there was loads and loads of questions asked, quite a lot of technical questions, quite a lot of technical answers. I've linked the stream VOD down below. It's about an hour and 15 minutes in this section. You guys are interested in learning a bit more about what they're doing and some of the questions that were answered. They did really fill in some of the nitty-gritty details of how Space Engineers work, talked about some of the lighting engine issues, for example, why they struggle with making it pure black at night and things like that. So that's interesting, it's linked down below, go and have a look if you want. I just wanted to give you guys a quick recap of it, so I think I'll leave that subject there and move on to the next one because this is pretty damn cool. So Space Engineers is going to be getting a campaign mode, and part of this is going to be kicking off with a campaign tutorial. A couple of the guys in-house at Keen that are level designers have been working on this for a while apparently, and the idea is we're kicking out that old clunky doesn't really work tutorial and instead going to get a story-driven experience that teaches people how to play Space Engineers. Right from the nitty-gritty, they showed some of this footage I'm showing in the background of this is part of the story apparently. Don't know any more details about that other than that certainly sounds like a massive improvement on how it's done now. But also that we will be getting access to those campaign tools, the ability to make campaigns ourselves. There's going to be a section up on the workshop, and people are actually going to be able to make, now details are a little bit slim here, but it sounds like a campaign a la a bunch of missions with a story, all with their triggers using this visual scripting tool that then lead into the next mission, and as a whole actually take a large length of time telling a story, telling an experience that some player in Space Engineers has made themselves. Sounds really damn cool, to be honest. It's about time Space Engineers had a bit more of the story side, and I really actually kind of like the idea that that's going to be driven by the player base of the game rather than anything else. But it also came with some tools to make this easier. So they talked about the fact that we're going to be able to make cutscenes in there, and there's actually some tools and bits that we can do to make camera dolly movements and pans and all of these extra bits and bobs to make cool, well, I mean, just the fact that you can put cutscenes into these campaigns built within the game is a really nice idea. Really helps the idea that Space Engineers is a sandbox that you can do what you want in, but it's also going to mean that I've just been given a new bag of toys. For group survival camera toys? Hell yes. So I'm really kind of hyped about not only the fact that we're going to get, I can imagine already the campaigns we're going to get. Keen are going to run a competition to try and encourage people at the start when this first comes out, but you guys know what people can come up with in this game. Crazy, crazy creations, and you can imagine let them loose with a story tool, and it's going to be wonderful. Can't really say a huge amount more about this. Unfortunately, there wasn't that many nitty-gritty details, just an idea of the overall concept, and I really quite like it. So anyway, moving on, we've got a couple of really tiny topics to end on, but they're kind of important ones because not only does it reflect a slight change in mindset, I think, at Keen Software House, but also there's some questions that people have really been asking a lot. And the first one of those is, where is the Xbox version? So apparently there has never been a pause in development on the Xbox version. There are people working on it now, they've always been working on it. It is progressing. The main thing holding it back, and it was a little awkward, this subject, is something to do with some legal documentation that Marek clearly couldn't say anything more about. Read into that what you will. It was just nice to hear that A, it is progressing, but that B, there is kind of a bit of a delay there, being caused by something behind the scenes that might not even be to do with, can we make Space Engineers on the Xbox? Now, it was also mentioned, and this has been mentioned before, that Space Engineers is coded in C#, the Xbox, or is it the other way around? One way around another. One of them uses C#, one of them uses C++. They don't play ball very well with each other, so it's kind of difficult moving it and porting it over to the console. That's about all I can say about Xbox. A bit of an update. The other one that was mentioned was VR. So we know they have been playing a little bit in-house with VR with Keen, trying to see whether it would work with Space Engineers, and it sounds like the answer is, for now, not really. They've paused any work on that to try and make the core game better, try and make sure that the performance and the multiplayer and so on is there, and I guess that's partly because if you want a good VR experience, you need 90 FPS, and you know how difficult it is to get Space Engineers to run at 90 FPS. This was even mentioned. So for now, VR development is kind of on pause. I personally think that's a good thing. I think VR development is a really wacky direction for Space Engineers to go in, because there's so many challenges there and they really haven't got Space Engineers itself sorted. So I like this direction. I like this focus on the core mechanics of the game. Get back to a game that's going to be really good to play, really fun to play, and it'll take off on its own, in my opinion. So that was basically the main points. There were a huge number of questions asked, and if you guys want to go and actually see some of that with the chat log down alongside, it's linked down in the video description. It was a really fun stream. I mean, if nothing else, it was one of the few streams I think where I've seen Marek smiling and really energetic for most of it, which, you know, no offense to the guy, he's just normally quite laid back. So seeing him really getting pumped was an interesting one, if nothing else. Just as an example to finish on, there was a while where we were talking about good AI, obviously people were asking some questions, and Marek did talk a bit about his intention to live for 4 million years. Qualified a little bit as some part of me will be alive 4 million years from now, and What on earth he means by that, I don't know. Apparently Marek plans to dominate the world or something, be the immortal being. Either way, I felt that was a fun one to mention for the ending. Gives you guys a bit of a feel for what the stream was like. If you enjoyed this video, found it helpful, please click that like button. It really does help me in the channel out. If you didn't like it, dislike button's right next door. Please hammer on that if you feel the need to. And otherwise, thanks a lot for watching, folks. I will catch you for the next one. Woo!